Hi there, and welcome into the Take the North podcast, along with Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. I am Mark Grote of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Dan and I are broadcasting right now from Haugh, where the Bears just introduced three of their new players. Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson, the two new interior offensive linemen, are here. So is Grady Jarrett, the defensive lineman who was released by Atlanta, and the Bears benefited from that. I would say that was in part, Dan Wiederer, the theme of today, that the Bears benefited from the NFL being the NFL. I had this vibe from these guys, like as in teams can't afford to keep everybody. Joe Thuney, I think, was probably a little surprised and maybe even dismayed a little bit that he was on his way out of Kansas City. I felt the same thing for Grady Jarrett. He was beloved in Atlanta, from Atlanta, loved being a Falcon, but the Bears benefited from that. These guys are happy to be here, but it's not, I understand if their heads are spinning a little bit, Dan.
Yeah, no question. It's a busy week, and you got to get your wits about you, right, and your equilibrium back. I love this for our YouTube audience, Grote. It's always fun on days like this where we're working side by side, but then it comes time to record the podcast, and you've got to retreat to a dark room like you're in, and I took the center stage here, hoping nobody interrupts me in the next 25 minutes or so. But like for me, there was just an energy to the day. And a lot of that energy, I think, was provided by Grady Jarrett. And I don't know if you've got any comps of, proven veterans that have come into Haugh, kind of breathing fire like Grady Jarrett. But my first sentiment as we walked back upstairs from the press conference down here was, I really hope Grady Jarrett's good, because if he's good, he's going to quickly become a fan favorite in Chicago, and he's going to become a media favorite in an instant, because that was a really enjoyable, passion-filled, energy-filled conversation that we had in two different settings with Grady Jarrett, where you're like, yeah, this dude's going to bring some fun.
Let me play a little bit from Grady Jarrett, and again, let's be clear. This man loved being in Atlanta, loved being with the Falcons. The love was reciprocated, but per what Grady Jarrett was talking about with just the beat guys and gals, is that part of his life is gone. Here's what he thinks going forward.
I'm focused on the next thing, and my next thing is here, and all I can do, I would be robbing Chicago coaches, players, fans, if I was up here worried about how Atlanta made me feel. And so even to give that energy to say, I'm going to get back at Atlanta, we won't even play Atlanta this year. So whatever they doing, they got nothing to do with me, So all my energy, all my focus is right here in Chicago, and that's where it's going, and that's where it's going to be.
Grady, what do you remember about playing the Lions a couple of years ago, and what it's like to face a Ben Johnson?
Yeah, it was tough. I was talking to Coach earlier, and I was telling him, I don't even, some of these plays you drop, I don't even know how you think about it. You know what I'm saying? And so it was cool, and playing that line that they had up there, they're definitely physical. Respect those guys a lot. Played them in 2023, I think, and then back in 2020 as well. But I don't know. But whatever, we're talking about the last time. But I know what the Lions were about, especially these past 2 years. They've been doing really well. And to have Coach Johnson here, from there, guys, as you can see, you talk to him, he's intense, man. He want to win bad, and I'm happy to be able to play for him. And I'm fired up.
I love when defensive players show that respect for their counterparts on the other side, especially coaches. We got a little bit of that from Kyler Gordon today as he got the Block Courage Award. And I think you asked the question, Dan, about him admiring Detroit from afar.
Yeah, and so you've got that little bit of swagger and energy that Ben Johnson has brought to the building, right? Where guys are gravitating toward that. Like, man, that dude seems like he's out to win, and he's out to win with energy and with creativity and with purpose, and that's there. I do think it's funny that Grady Jarrett acknowledged, justifiably so, that the Falcons are not on the Bears' schedule for 2025, but he did check. He knew that. So
he did.
He certainly probably looked at the schedule to make sure that was the case.
I'm not thinking about Atlanta, but I do know the schedule. And the funny part is, Dan, most players don't really know the schedule. Like at this point, they're not paying much attention to it. Just tell me where we're going.
I'm sure he peaked. Yeah. But he also said something today where he said, be pissed off for greatness, don't be pissed off for vengeance. And that was one of those ones you just go right to your notebook and you scribble that down. And it was part of this little theme for me where it was like, you could take what we got from Grady Jarrett and what was about 25 minutes today, and you could make a one-a-day calendar for the rest of the month of March and have some really fun words of wisdom and motivational sayings to get your own juices flowing in the morning, because that's the type of energy he was breathing in here today. And I love that the guy's going to turn 32 next month, has been around the league for 10 years, gotten paid a couple different times, has still got that passion pumping in every single sentence that he speaks. And if that's how he is at an introductory press conference, I imagine we're going to see something that's pretty cool when he gets out on the practice field.
No doubt about it. Let's talk a little bit about what Grady Jarrett will be able to provide and how they will use him. Is he, Dan, is he the 3 technique? Is he at the expense of anybody that's currently on the Bears defensive line?
Well, I think when you talk to people around the league, there's this focus on the front 4, but you're almost trying to build a front 4 times 2. Because if you look at sort of the model that Philadelphia has used, and obviously to win a Super Bowl this past season,
both of their Super Bowls in the last, I think even that first, what was it, 2017?
The first one they won. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like the rotation was just as superb that year. I mean, that is a formula that works.
No question. And so, like, you're looking to send waves at the opposing offense. And so, like, you're paying Grady Jarrett to start for you. You're paying him to be an every week difference maker, but that doesn't mean he's going to be on the field for 90% of the snaps, particularly at his advanced stage and advanced age. And so, you want to find a sweet spot for what makes sense for him. Where is he going to be at his best? How do you get him on the field in obvious passing downs? What do you do, again, with another guy that we'll meet on Thursday, Dio and Dengbo, who can go inside and rush from you there on obvious passing downs. And so it really is about Dennis Allen finding the sweet spot for how to use Grady Jarrett, how much to use him, and how to turn him loose. And so, will it take away some opportunity from Javon Dexter? Maybe, but will it create opportunity for Javon Dexter? Maybe, right? Because you're going to be able to be fresher. You're going to have less pressure on you when you are playing. And all of that is fluid, and we'll get to feel that out as we go.
I just get the feeling that whether it's in the draft, I don't know about free agency or via trade at this point, that there's probably one more stabilizing, real, legitimate move for the defensive line. And I think Dio Dango is very interesting. And I will ask about this when we get a chance to talk to Ryan Poles about Odango. And that is, like, is he it? Is he the guy? Is he the defensive end opposite of Montez Sweat, or could somebody else slide in? And I get it. They're paying him big bucks, but again, and I know we talked about this a little bit, Dan, they are projecting him to get better and to have bigger numbers than he had while he was in Indianapolis.
Right. And so, like, this is a conversation I had a little bit with our buddy and former Take the North host, David Haugh, on Wednesday morning. It's like, it's really easy to get swallowed by best case scenarios in March. But like, you and I can both sit here with clear eyes and say that the Bears aren't going to bat 1,000 with their free agency acquisitions. One of these 6 guys that they've brought in via trade or signings over the last week is not going to pan out the way they envision him panning out, right? Like, could that be Odengbo? I don't know. Could that be Grady Jarrett? I don't know. Could it be Jonah Jackson? I don't know. But you just have to be ready for that possibility. And as a front office and as a coaching staff, you have to have the pieces lined up behind that, right? Like to be able to, still succeed if you don't get everything that you're expecting out of the players that you're expecting it from. And so that's where it's going to get really interesting, because I look, like, you and I have talked about it earlier in the week, and we've talked about it off the air again today, that it's really easy to shoot off the confetti cannons and feel really, really mesmerized by the excitement that is understandable here at Haugh at this stage of free agency. But you also have to have that realistic lens of understanding that like, winning March doesn't mean nearly as much as winning October, and like, the Bears have to keep their eyes on that prize, and they have to continue fortifying every single unit on that depth chart until you feel like you can really create that momentum that creates wins.
Yeah, and I think that last year is a lesson in that direction, as we were all very smitten with what Ryan Poles did last year. Let's talk some business here, Dan, and specifically with Joe Thuney, the Bears' new left guard. And that should be pointed out. Joe Thuney will be the left guard. Jonah Jackson will be the right guard. There was some question about that, Dan. That didn't surprise me. Did that surprise you at all? I mean, you keep Thuney, you keep the potential future Hall of Famer at the position in which he has thrived.
Did not surprise me, but glad to hear it. So we don't have to play the guessing game any longer, and hopefully we can find our way to figuring out what that looks like when they get the new guy in here, Drew Dahlman, here soon.
Let me play Joe Thuney, and then Dan and I will react to it and give you our impressions on where this is going. But here was Joe Thuney on a potential contract extension. We were trying with Joe. Here it is.
I'm not really sure. I kind of let my agent handle all that. I just try and focus on the game and football and just getting ready for the season. So just that's really what I'm focused on.
You've had two great runs, obviously, with the Patriots and the Chiefs. Do you want to look past? Are you comfortable playing this year, knowing that you'd be hitting free agency, or do you want to start thinking ahead of what that could mean for you and sticking around?
No, I'm grateful to be here, and I'm pumped to play, and I'll let all that business side of it handle itself. But excited to get on the field with the guys and OTAs, and I'm excited to start working and. So just looking forward to it. I've been very comfortable so far. It's been awesome. Not too crazy hard questions for you guys yet, but it's going well. And like I said, this is a special franchise, special city. I really believe in what Ryan, the coach, and everyone's pulling for, and I'm excited to be part of it and contribute what I can.
Dan, what did you make of that? I'll give you the first crack at this one.
Well, very different vibes from Joe Thuney and Grady Jarrett. Let's just put it that way. And Jonah Jackson fits more in the Thuney camp of these guys that are going about their business pretty calm and steady, whereas Grady Jarrett's that juice guy. And you know how much I love the juice.
Oh, I know, man.
But look, I think that speaks also to what you're asking here about Joe Thuney's personality. He's just a one day at a time, take care of my business, control what I can control kind of guy. And he understands that some of that is out of his control. And obviously you would imagine that his camp will be pressing the Bears for a little bit more certainty on what the future holds beyond this year. But his first objective is to get himself in here, get acclimated, get settled on the offensive line, make life easier for Caleb Williams, and continue what he's been doing for the last 10 years, which is winning in the NFL, in two programs that have been really, really accomplished. And so I think that's what Thuney brings here is just that understanding of what it looks like, the ability to, demonstrate that to the guys that are around him and become a compass for those guys in the locker room. And then whatever happens beyond 2025 will happen beyond 2025 when it happens, right? Like that's it seems to be his approach. Didn't seem to be caught up in I need a contract, before I set foot at training camp. Otherwise I'm going to be very unsettled.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is, he needs a chance to get his feet on the ground here, see if he likes it here. Does he want to be with this franchise? Is his future? Does he feel like it's someplace else? Obviously, the Bears are going to have the best crack at him, and I would guess that Joe Thuney will want to do business with the Bears. But as you mentioned, he's been with two powerhouse franchises with two great quarterbacks in Tom Brady with New England and obviously Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. This is very different. And he's saying all the right things and all good things about what the Bears have and what they're building and Caleb Williams and all of that. But Joe Thuney's he has a say in this as well. And I think that it's probably pretty normal for him to not want to throw a bunch of stuff at us in terms of contract information at this point.
No, I mean, look, like it's 2 days removed from getting the reset in Kansas City and obviously doing it here in Chicago. The themes with guys like this, and we will be asking them throughout the spring and into the summer about that time in New England and Kansas City. And Joe Thuney hinted at some of that today, Grote, where he just talked about, particularly with Tom Brady and other guys in that program, and the way they just approach every day and how the boring and repetitive stuff is stuff that takes on equal intensity. And that's how you chase greatness. And so I think that insight, that experience will be valuable to the Bears. And as time goes on, you'll feel that presence as the Bears get in there. Look, like we still have to get that entire starting offensive line together and see what it looks like and see how they gel together. But you're certainly starting with Joe Thuney in a place where you know what you're getting out of that guy, and his durability and reliability is something that you can rest your head on the pillow every night believing it.
Yeah, and then Jonah Jackson is the other guy that I think I know what the Bears are getting out of him, but last year left everybody wondering just a little bit. I mean, and to give you what went down with Jonah Jackson last year, that he'd signed with the Rams last March, about a year ago right now, a 3-year, $51 million contract. He then was pushed in to start at center, and I believe those were the first snaps he ever had taken at the center position. So it wasn't looking right. He wasn't playing particularly well. Then a fractured scapula in week 2 that put him on injured reserve, didn't return till about the middle of November, and it was just a rough year for him. So on a couple of occasions, we were asking Jonah Jackson about last year. Let's listen to what I thought was the best answer in regards to that.
I mean, there's a lot of things that are out of my control, positional change. I had an injury that you can't even predict. It happens in car accidents, and it happened just like a freak accident. But it comes with the game. This game is all about trials and tribulations, how you handle it. And, with a group like this and the mindset I have, I feel like we'll be able to be just fine in the days coming. You can't forget things like that. It makes you into the person you are. And, I was able to just hone in on my craft, sharpen my toolbox, and, work. I was able to work both sides of the ball, so I feel comfortable and I feel like a dynamic player. And, my body was able to heal up. I feel great. I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad those are questions that had to be asked on the big unveil today of Jonah Jackson. But that's what everybody's talking about. That's what everyone's wondering about. We think we like you, but what about last year? Was that a satisfying answer to you, Dan?
I don't think anything will be satisfying to me until I see Jonah Jackson playing, right? Like you want to see that with your own eyes coming off a season like that. And so like, I get where they're coming from. And when I asked that question to Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson about what their homework turned up on what Jonah Jackson's 2024 in LA was, Ben Johnson was pretty direct and short with his answer and saying he's a Pro Bowl level guard, and that was really all he had to say. And it's clear that the Bears haven't really bought into anything that derailed Jonah Jackson in 2024 as much as they've believed in the time that Ben spent with him in Detroit for the 4 seasons previous to that. Just want to see it with your own eyes, right? Like we've been through too many things here at 1920 Football Drive to just take people's words for things, right? Like you just want to see what it looks like, and you want to see a guy stay healthy and play at a high level. I do think that, as advertised, Jonah Jackson's kind of calm but confident presence came across today. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was on the Score, and somebody said that he sounded a little bit like Tevin Jenkins, and that did go through my head a little bit. I'm not saying like we're comping him, but he had a little bit of that relaxed, calm presence of mind that Tevin always brought us.
Yeah, and that'll be fun to get to know as well. Opposite corners of the locker room, we'll spend one part of a Wednesday talking to Jonah Jackson and getting calm, and then on Thursday we'll go to Grady Jarrett and get all juiced up and walk out of the locker room, shouting LFG to each other and pushing each other in the chest.
The last guy that I want to talk about right now, Dan, and we can, if there's anything else on your mind, definitely let's get it in here. But I do want to. You and I were both at what's the name of the place?
Manzo's, whatever you want to call it.
Manzo's Banquet Hall in Des Plaines, where the Ed Block Courage Award ceremony was presented, and Kyler Gordon was the Ed Block Courage Award winner. He's coming up out of contract, his rookie, heading into his 4th year. That would be the end of his rookie deal. Dan, I don't see any way that the Bears don't give Kyler Gordon a nice extension eventually.
As we sit here on March 12th, this doesn't seem very complicated at all. Kyler Gordon wants to be here for a while. Kyler Gordon was the first ever draft pick by Ryan Poles as Bears general manager. So you understand the affinity there. Ben Johnson comes into this room that I'm sitting in right now on the day of his introduction and talks about Kyler Gordon being a phenomenal nickel in this league. Dennis Allen a week later tells you he's an outstanding player and I got a vision for how to use him. And so there seems to be a lot of breadcrumbs leading to a extension. Now you got to figure out the parameters. What do those look like? What's important to both sides? How do you get something done? But there certainly doesn't seem to be anyone pushing back on the idea of Kyler Gordon remaining a Bear beyond 2025. And that's how you build championship programs. You draft, develop, and you retain the core building blocks. I give Kyler credit at this stage anyway. Again, March 12th, 2025. He doesn't seem stressed by entering his contract year. He seemed, I think his word was indifferent. We'll see how it goes. And hopefully it's about getting something done that's fair. But he doesn't seem like, man, the contract is the only thing on my mind. And until I get paid top dollar, I'm not going to rest.
Right, because he knows the Bears would be crazy not to give him an extension. I mean, I don't want to hyperbolize how good the development has been. Really nice of Kyler Gordon. I'll just say that. And there were national announcers this year. I don't remember which game it was, but one of the announcers on one of their national games said that Kyler Gordon is considered one of the best nickels in the league at this point. So that just that right there is heavy power on your side. Now the Bears will go through the film and all of that and be a little bit more exact in terms of how they evaluate Kyler Gordon, not to mention the fact that he simply is a success story so far for Ryan Poles. And we know that he's been hit with lack of success in a lot of cases. And I'm being told by Studzinski that was Monday Night Football versus the Vikings.
Well, I sat up in my chair in late January with the way that Dennis Allen spoke about him. And listen, like Dennis Allen was answering a question about his entire defense. It wasn't a direct question about Kyler Gordon. And you could feel the energy that he had about using this chess piece in his defense. And so when you take a guy that is versatile and can be a playmaker for you in so many different ways, and you pair him with a guy who likes to be creative and play that chess game, there's some tantalizing things that can happen here. And I think Kyler Gordon himself said today, like, me and him can do some special things together, and like you could feel his own energy for like, okay, like we're going to get our heads together. We're going to figure out what I do best. He's going to use me how I'm best used. And then let's see where the results go. And if those results are really, really good, that contract may go up, or they get it done before they go out on the field in September and they get something done before the season starts, which could very easily happen with the way both sides are leaning, and Kyler Gordon becomes part of this team's long-term plans beyond 2025.
Yeah, it was, to be even a little bit more specific about Kyler Gordon, it was Troy Aikman who said the glowing things about Kyler Gordon. Dan, that kind of stuff does not hurt a player. And I do remember going up to Kyler Gordon's locker and saying, hey, they were Troy Aikman saying nice things about, and he cut me off like in the middle of it. He goes, I know. It's like, so don't think that those guys don't take that stuff into account, and don't think that they haven't sent that audio already to Ryan Poles and whomever else needs to see it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then with a couple dollar sign emojis and whatever else is next to it to get it done. So look, some cool things are happening here at Haugh. There's been a lot of rebooting and renovating done since the season ended. A lot more to come. The Bears still have, more than 24, almost 30 roster spots still to fill before they go to OTAs in May. And they're going to have to add some bargain pieces here, there, and everywhere. You have to feel a little bit of energy from the momentum they've created this month. But let me ask you this, because this was a little bit of a conversation throughout the week. Is there such thing as winning the offseason? Because that seems to be the conversation in town. And my contention is that, like, until the NFL starts giving out actual victories for offseason transactions, you can't proclaim wins in the offseason. What I've said is the Bears are giving themselves a chance to have a chance, and I think we should commend them for making strides, and for Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles getting their heads together quickly and being aggressive and very purposeful in what they've done. But then, as we always do here on Take the North, we try to put the proper frame around it before the parade floats get out of the staging area.
I think anybody that watches football, even if you like the flashier players, if you like wide receivers and such like that, and big time linebackers, everybody can agree that if you're building up your offensive line and your defensive line with players that you deem to be good and have evaluated them as strong players in this league, yeah, you're winning an offseason. And it's not always the flashiest thing in the world, but there's nobody who can look at it and say, yeah, that's not the right thing to do, building those lines. You don't want to do. So that's what the Bears have done. It's almost like, Dan, I don't want to give them too much credit, because they had to do what they are doing. The offensive line needed a complete rebuild. The defense fell away last year. So these are obvious you had no choice but to make these moves. So it's been good what they've done. I applaud Ryan Poles and everybody associated with it. This was essential competency for the Bears, and they're continuing to do it, and hopefully it doesn't stop here.
No, it can't stop here, and that's the other part. Is one of the things that you talk about is this is about more than 2025. You obviously want to get on the right track this season, but you also have to have answers in the stable for up the road, and so how much longer does Joe Thuney have? How much longer does Grady Jarrett have? And so at this point, you can put them in your starting lineup, but you better have your eyes on 26, 27, 28 and trying to get guys that can come in and develop into those difference-making starters behind them. And you've got to add those pieces in ways that aren't obvious and ways that are, through the draft and free agency and undrafted free agency and all the things that go with it. Should be fun,
Yeah.
and I will say, I am feeling the Ben Johnson vibes every time we meet with him. You feel a little bit of the confidence. You feel a couple of the players today talked about the passion that he exudes talking about it. I love that, right? Like, I love that. That's how I want to live my life. Like, be really into what you do and do it really well, and then hope other people feed off that energy. That's obvious with what Ben Johnson's arrival has brought here. Now, again, like the true results will come in September, October, November, and December. And one of these years, you and I would be really, really lucky if we were talking about big victories in those months instead of the big victories in March.
Seems to be heading in the right direction. And Dan, I feel like somebody's going to come in that auditorium and either turn the lights off on you or start making a racket. So why don't we get out of here while the getting is good, unless you have any final thoughts from your station, Dan?
No, you asked me earlier if there's anything I needed to address. I was talking Bears and football, I assume. And I don't have anything on that front. If you want me to unpack my life, we got another 45 minutes.
If you want to give the people a nugget about what goes on in Dan Wiederer's life, I'm here for it.
We'll save that,
man.
We'll save that for another therapy session, and we'll go to levels that you didn't think we could go to, Grote, and we'll just really get after it there.
You know what's funny, Dan? You know what's funny about that? You and I keep talking about, we talk about this off the air, sometimes on the air, about how, we're going to have lots of times where there's nothing going on. And we just talk about that. Has not happened. That has not happened. It didn't happen during the season because every loss was its own story that had to be dissected throughout the week. And this offseason, I love it, has been absolutely nonstop and in a good way for the Bears so far.
Save the date, June 4th. That's when it's going to slow down.
June 4th. Okay. I'm marking that down.
And we're going to write that down as the, talk about everything but football day.
Ask us anything.
We'll go to some different universes on that day.
Let's get out of here. For Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune, Adam Studzinski back in our downtown Chicago studios producing Take the North. I am Mark Grote out here at Haugh Hall with Dan Wiederer. That's where we're coming from today. Thank you for watching the Take the North podcast. Thank you so much for listening to it as well. We'll talk to you later on Take the North.
Great talk. See you out there.